Okay, so yeah, so this is the first day of the Commvault backup product training. So uh, if you are very new, let me give you like what exactly this training is about. So this training is about like the backup product. So here we are going to cover the operations, the day-to-day operations as a backup admin using the Commvault backup tool. Mostly within the 30 days of training, so you will be eligible to apply for any job openings at an L2 level, or if you're already working at an L1 level, then you can you'll get a good hands-on experience, and also you'll get some good awareness so that you can apply for a promotion to L2 level. So yeah, so let's get started. Like before we actually go into the topics, so I just wanted to give like what you can expect from this training. The expectation that you can have is like after within an 2-3 days of training, you can set up your own lab. I will show you the demonstration how you can install the workstation on your laptop, but provided you need to have a minimum 16 GB RAM. And once you install the VMware workstation, you need to create the virtual machines, at least two virtual machines, one for Commserve and other for Media Agent. And once you have an virtual machines, and then I'll show you how you can install the packages like Commserve on one virtual machine and Media Agent package on another virtual machine. And then whatever the topics we cover, then you can do the day-to-day practice on that virtual machine. And this is one part, and regarding the another part, I will also show you how you can set up your lab environment in the Azure cloud. So if you heard about like the Microsoft Azure cloud, so I'll show you. Even if you're new to that, don't worry. Like Azure isn't something like the Microsoft provided, the cloud provided by the cloud environment provided by Azure. Sorry, the Microsoft company. So those things. So two setups. One is when you can have a setup in the your own laptop, and you can also create a setup in the Azure cloud. But if you are setting the the environment, the lab environment in the Azure cloud, so you should be knowing that it might cost you, right? So I mean, anyhow, Microsoft is providing you, if you are new to the if you subscribe for the first time, it will give you the $200 of credit for free. So within that $200, so within 1 month you can use that, you can use for deploying any resources. So but usually the you need to have either a debit card or a credit card, so that to create an account with Microsoft Azure. So yeah, so we'll go into the details about that later. So just to give you like overview, so you have the Commcell environment is a three tier. So one is the so one so main the yeah, the first tier is your Commserve machine, so which is responsible for all the admin activities, like it coordinates all the activities in the environment. And the second tier is your the media agent. So the media agent is again, so it's a like the server, or it's a package that is installed on one server, which will conduct the data movement, it's going to coordinate with the storage, and then it's going to report it back to the Commserve. So all that functionalities, and again, not only that, coordinating with the storage, it has many other functionalities which we are going to see in detail. And the third tier is like your client. So here the client can be agent based or agentless. So the client is a machine whose data need to be backed up. So for example, if you have an Oracle database running on one server, so Oracle database, if your DB admin, like Oracle DB admin, want the backup of the database, so we're going to take a backup of that database, right? So for a backup admin, the server where the Oracle is installed and whose data need to be backed up, we call that as a client. So in the backup terminology, we call that server where Oracle database is installed. We call that as a client because we are backing up the data or the database within that server. So we call that as a client machine. So likewise, not only like Oracle database, like any database or any the file system or anything, right? Anything which any server for which data we have to back up, we call that as a client. So we have a three-tier architecture here. So in this particular, like training session, yeah. So what you can expect is that it will be totally like like scenario-based training. Like I will take some examples of different scenarios, like how it will be in the real time, like like small environments and large environments, and how, and also you will see like how the Commvault environment. So this Commcell setup will be in the on-premise. If you have your data center, if your customer is having your their own data center, and so within the on-prem, how this environment will be set up. And also I'll also show you some use cases and example if your customer is having in the cloud environment, if their complete infra is in the cloud environment, and how they can set up the backup environment in the cloud. Or else some customers may be using the hybrid environment. Hybrid in the sense, like there are two data centers, like one few of the workloads will be running in on-prem environment, on-premise environment, and few workload will be running in the cloud environment. So that kind of setup, we call it as an hybrid cloud. So Commvault is an uh, so very good tool. It has the features which will support all these kind of environments, whether it is an on-prem, whether it is an completely cloud, or whether it is an hybrid. So it has a lot of features, like it can be, it can support any kind of environment. So it is a very big tool. So but this training is around only 30 hours of training. So mostly I'm going to cover using this tool, how you can operate as a backup admin, how you can operate this tool so that you can perform the backups, restores, and the admin activities within the environment. So all that stuff will be discussed here. So let's start with the Commserve. So let us suppose example, assume that you are hired for one company, like ABC company, right? And that company, let us suppose assume that it's a very small environment, right? And you are the only one backup admin that is hired for the backup role. So now so the first task when you enter into the company, then you'll be having your manager, and he will call you and tell, okay, so let's suppose assume that Abdul. So myself, I am hired for one company, right? ABC company, and my manager is going to tell, like, we need to set up an backup environment. So we need to have an backup for our infrastructure. So infrastructure, when I mention infrastructure, like every company will have the their own infrastructure. Like for example, ABC company, if they're operating in an banking domain, very small bank, right? And they will have some the databases, they will have some web servers, and that company will manage some infra. And I'm the new backup engineer hired for ABC bank, and my manager want to set up an backup environment, right? And they after my manager so as I had already decided that they are going to use the backup tool as a Commvault. So they already negotiated with the different vendors, and then they finally decided to go with the Commvault product. So now my manager is going to call, and then he'll ask me to so create a setup. So the first thing I'm going to do is that, like, I'm going to get the I'm going to ask the build sheet. So build sheet in the sense, like, in some companies they will call it as an RFP. So whatever the the customer provided design, like in what is that how many servers they need production, and all that details will be there. So we'll go into that later. But as the first the first day, like after being hired, my manager asked to set up an Commserve machine. So we bought an Commvault product. So he told me that we're going to use a Commvault tool as a backup, right? Or as a backup or restore or for data protection. So in general, we call it as data protection. For data protection, so my manager says that we have a Commvault tool, so we need to create a setup. So first thing I need to create is a Commserve machine, right? I need to have an for installing the Commserve package. So Commserve is a software. So first in the first year of your environment is in Commserve. So to install this package, I need a server, right? So I'll be asking my so there is a different team for who is going to manage the operating system or like your server hardware. I'm going to consult the the server team, and then I'm going to ask them. I need one server where I can install an Commserve package. So now uh, again, so everything will be in the build sheet. So if in the build sheet, let's suppose assume that they have mentioned as an the Commserve should be installed in a virtual machine. So I'm going to ask the server team. So provision one virtual machine. So provision one virtual machine and provide me the details like of the server access, like for example the IP address of that server, the host name, and the credentials, right? I need the username and password, so all that details. So now the server team might be asking me like what is the operating system you need for that. So for Commserve, most of the customers they will use the Windows operating system. So you have to remember that. So Commserve is supported in both Linux and Windows, but we see that like most of the customers, like 99% of the customers, they will use the Windows only for Commserve. The Linux support came recently. It came in the 11.32, like 1 year back or so. So most of the customers, they deploy Commserve package in the Windows operating system. So Windows server. So I'm going to ask like the Linux team, the server team. So you create a virtual machine and deploy the Windows 2022 or 2019, and then provide the details of the server. Okay, so now so the server team has provisioned one VM and they provided me the details. So as a backup admin, my responsibility is that I have to first task is I have to install the Commserve package, right? So I have to install the Commserve package. So now the next question is where I can download the Commserve package. So for that, okay, so Commvault has a support portal, support.commvault.com, right? From here you can download the package here. So there's something here, but I need to log in here, but there is another one where I can show you from another URL where you can download the yeah. So cloud.commvault.com, if you navigate to this, here you have an home media kits, right? From here you have a different versions, 11.3634. The latest is 11.36, but the stable most of the customers, okay, somebody waiting in the room, admitted. Okay, so yeah, here I have a latest version 11.36, but mostly if you see the customer environments, right, they prefer n-1, right, which means that no customer will upgrade if, for example, if the Commvault released the latest version 11.36, no customer will directly upgrade to 11.36 because there might be that version might not be stable, even though the Commvault has released it. There might be some issues, there might be some issues that we'll be encountering in the future. But if you see in the trend, the most of the companies, they will follow n-1. That means n is your latest version, -1 is the version 1 below it. So version 1 below it is 11.34. So now our training will be mostly on the 11.32, right? The reason is that 11.32 is your long-term support, LTS. It's called as LTS, long-term support, which means that Commvault is providing you around 5 years of support if you are in 11.32 or if you are in the LTS version. So 11.32 is considered as an LTS version. For now, you simply remember 11.32 is an LTS and it is a stable release. So all our training will be on 11.32. At the end of the training, I will also show you how you can upgrade from 11.32 to how you can upgrade your complete environment from 11.32 to 11.36 version. So if you see the most of the customers, they will be on the 11.32 only. So the training is completely on the 11.32. Okay, now coming back to our the training part. So we are considering an example, right? In the example, I said that so Abdul is one backup admin who got hired for ABC Bank, and now I need to download the media kit, right? For that, I went into cloud.commworld.com and then media kit and then 11.32. So 11.32, if you see here, there will be something called a full, yeah, the full media kit. So I'm going to download this and then I have to copy it onto the virtual machine where the Commserve need to be installed, right? That is my first task. So for downloading that, I need to get an login access. You see here, it doesn't allow you if you did not log in directly. So again, I will speak to my manager and then I'll get that the account created for login into the cloud.commworld.com. So the Commworld support, technical support will provide me so all that credentials information, and with that I can be able to log in into this page and I can download it. So the first task is downloading the media kit. Okay, let's see one demo video which I already recorded. The reason I already recorded is that sometimes the software installation might take long time, right? So here instead of waiting for a long time, so I just pass that video and then I have recorded it so that we can save time and we can get the full benefit, more benefit in short time. So that's the reason only for recording the videos of the lab demos. So let's first see how you can somebody is waiting. Okay, so let's suppose assume that we play that video. Okay, so here I'm showing you the demonstration how you can create a virtual machine inside the Azure environment. Okay, let's consider that let's take that same example, right? The ABC Bank example. So the backup admin, the ABC Bank has their complete environment in Azure cloud. So let's see how the virtual machine will be created in the Azure cloud. And as a backup admin, usually like you will not be creating any virtual machines because there will be a cloud engineer who will be doing it for you. But for if you want to set up your own lab, I have recorded this video. So you have to go to the portal.azure.com, and before that you need to have a subscription also. So if you see the subscription here, I'm using pay as you go, but if you're a new the first time subscriber, you can get it like trial version. So trial version you'll be getting a $200 of credit, so for free. So you can use that $200 of credit for within first 30 days, because I have upgraded to pay as you go, right? And here I'm searching for the virtual machine, and in the virtual machine there is an option called create, and create Azure virtual machine. If you have any doubt, you can keep it hold. At the end of the session we can I'll take that all that questions. So now here it will ask some options like the subscription and resource group. And if you are new, then we are going to create a resource group, commode environment. You can give any name. Okay, I am going to deploy the Commserve package in that virtual machine. So I have given the name Commserve. And the image is nothing but an operating system. So as I said, Commserve package mostly deployed in the Windows server. So I am selecting the Commserve Windows 2022. Okay. So 99% of the customers they deploy Commserve in the Windows operating system. And then size, yeah. So I'm selecting the 4 vCPU 16 GB because Commserve will need more resources. Usually 16 GB is required minimum. And then username for that virtual machine. You can select any username. Here I given cvadmin. And a password you need to create as per the rules, as per the the Azure policies. You have to create it. An RDP port, it's an the way you can connect to that machine. So I need to keep that open. So go with the default options. So disk, you can see Azure will provide by default 127 GB disk, so OS disk. So for which we can also call it as a C drive. So I just said I went with the default. And the virtual network, so by default it has picked some name, so I went with the default. And subnet also it picked it, so I'm not changing anything there. And public IP, yeah, I need a public IP to access the VM, so I'm going with the default, remaining all the default options. So just go for the next. Okay, validation pass. But here if you're deploying anything in the Azure, as I mentioned, whatever you deploy in the resource in the Azure, it has some cost in it, right? So you should be well aware if you are deploying anything. So you should be seeing like how much it's going to cost you. Like you can see, just a moment. Yeah, this virtual machine is going to cost me around 40 Indian rupees per hour. So if I run it for 1 hour, Azure is going to bill me 40 rupees per hour. So if I'm agreeing with that, then we can go ahead and create it. Don't worry. So if you don't want it to give any try on the Azure, but if you want to set up your lab, I'll show you within your laptop also, like within your laptop, how you can create a virtual machine, and then how you can set up your Commvault environment. Okay, I just passed and resumed it. So now, usually the deployment will take around 3-4 minutes. So now the virtual machine is ready. You can see the status as running. The reason I have recorded this, the first in the Azure cloud is that most of the companies, right? If you see, they are using the hybrid, either hybrid or they're having an environment in the cloud. So if you see, most of the customers will be either AWS or they are using Amazon Web Services or Microsoft Azure. So I have picked the Azure, but I will also show you how you can set up the same thing in the AWS at the end of the training session. Don't worry, even if you're not following through, but this is only for, like showing you how we can set up, the environment in the Microsoft Azure. So now you can see we have a private IP address. So, and also that virtual machine has a public IP address. So one thing you have to do is that, let me just pass this. Okay, within the Azure environment, the private IP address will change usually. If you reboot it, sometimes even the public and private IP address, they will keep on changing. They will not be static all the times. So for our lab environment, we need to have that IP address static. So for keeping that IP address static, what you have to do is that you have to go to that networking, and then you have an option network setting, and then you can follow the next steps. Like there is a network interface here, so you have to click on that, and there is an IPv4 name, which is ipconfig1, and here we are setting that as a static. So when you set that as a static, even if you reboot your virtual machine, the private IP address will remain the same. It's not going to change. Okay, so now the private IP address has been changed to static. Okay, you can go back to home, and then you can again, if you want to go back to the virtual machine. So now we are back to the virtual machine, Commserve virtual machine, right? Yeah, I'm just showing you like how you can, search the virtual machine. From there, you can type the virtual machine. So here it will display all the virtual machines that you created. So Commserve is one virtual machine just now we created. So how you can connect it? There is a connect option. Click on the connect, and now here it's going to show you the download RDP file. RDP file is, the process of connecting to your the remote virtual machine, right? So you have to download that RDP file and click on connect, and the CV admin password you already know, right? You have to enter that, and you can see that when you download the RDP file and when you click on connect, it is connecting to the public IP address. This is the public IP address of that virtual machine. Then you may get it out where you are going to use the private IP address. So for now, just only remember that for connecting from your laptop, from your workstation or from your home computer, you need a public IP address, right? Because this is something in the internet you are accessing. When you are accessing any resource in the internet, you need an public IP address, right? So by default, you can see that the RDB file is connecting to the public IP address of the virtual machine, and it is by default pick the user which is available, CV admin, and then it is asking the password. You have to enter the password that you created. Okay, so now we are connected to the Windows Server 2022. So this Windows Server 2022 doesn't have any packages. It doesn't have any software installed. So now coming back to our example, ABC Bank example. So your cloud engineer created one virtual machine in the Azure cloud following these steps that I shown you, and then he gave you the access, right? He gave you the procedure to connect to that virtual machine. Usually in the the real-time environment, they will not be giving you this process. There might be some other steps like connecting to the bastion host or jump server, but let's assume that it is a small environment, and so your Azure cloud engineer provided you the RDB file, and also he provided you the credentials like CV admin and the user to connect to that. So now as a backup admin, I connected to it. Okay, I'm just checking within this console. So this is a bare new virtual machine. It doesn't have any common software. So our lab purpose, what I did is I'm disabling the firewall. If you can see here, let me just yeah, what I did here for our lab purpose, right? Just to keep it everything simple, I have disabled the firewall, because if you have a firewall, sometimes you will get a network issue, right? So just to keep the lab simple, so everything like the private network, public network, I made it off. But in real time, if you see in so corporate environment, the firewalls will be on only. But if you want to practice it, let's keep that simple and keep that firewall off. I'll tell you the reason what will happen if firewall is on later. And then if you open the command prompt, run as admin, and this is the command ipconfig is your command to check the IP address, right? So open the command prompt and type ipconfig. So when you type ipconfig, it will give the IP address. So now you can see here the IP address 10.0.0.4 is a private IP address. So which means that if you log in inside the virtual machine, it will show you the private IP address. But to connect from your laptop or from your workstation or from outside your corporate environment, you need a public IP address, right? So you don't see the public IP address in the inside the virtual machine. So it is, you can see that public IP address only on the Azure console. So now you may get it out. So what is the purpose of the private IP address? So if you are deploying any resources within the Azure cloud, so all these resources will communicate through the private IP address. They will not use the public IP address, right? It is something like, for example, uh, if you are inside your home, and I mean, you can say that the private and public as an, so you can like, for example, right, within your home you might be having a different rooms. So from one room to another room, you can go to any room, right, without any permission. But if somebody outsider has to enter, he need to knock the door and he need to get a permission to enter, right? So the private is something like trustable. So all the resources within the Azure, so they will communicate using the private IP address because these are within the Azure. So Azure will allow the communication among the resources, because these resources are within Azure, they are trustable, so they can communicate through the private IP address. But anything that comes outside the Azure environment, it has to come through the public IP address, right? So public IP address is something like outside the Azure cloud environment. So now what I'm trying to say is that for private IP address is needed to communicate among the resources within the Azure cloud. Whatever the VMs you deploy in the Azure cloud, they will communicate through the private IP address. But if you want to connect to the Azure virtual machine from your laptop or from your computer, you need to have a public IP address. So now we did some, the changes within the server Azure virtual machine. So what changes we did is, so let me stop this. So we have an let so we deployed one virtual machine. We made the IP address as an static, the private IP address and static, and then we stop the firewall, right? So we need to do these things for setting up your lab in the within your Azure cloud environment. Okay, now coming back to your ABC bank example. So now your Azure cloud engineer has provisioned your virtual machine, right? And then he given you the credentials to access the Windows server. So that Windows server doesn't have any software, right? It doesn't have any packages installed. So what is the next step? The next step is downloading the Commvault packages. So he hand over the virtual machine to you, and you are the only backup admin responsible for setting up the complete backup infra, right? Okay, so I told you that the URL, the first URL you will go is store.commvault.com. When you type that, it will redirect to cloud.commvault.com. Okay, so I need to log in here, but so don't worry, for your lab I will share you that Commvault full package access on the G drive. So but if you're an employee in a corporate company, so this is how you download it. You have to go to that official site cloud.commvault.com and look for the 11.32 version, search for full, and that is the LTS version, long term support. And here you can see there are three variants. One is for Windows x64, Windows and Unix, right? So x64 means 64-bit, only Windows means 32-bit, and Unix is something for all the Linux flavors of operating system. So as I told you, so we're going to deploy the Commserve package on the Windows server, right? Because we are using the Windows 2022, we have to download that x64. And then it will ask you the username and the official email ID. So okay, I have already downloaded it. Okay, I kept it in the some folder with the name software. So after download, you can see that package with the name 11.32 Windows x64. So what is the next step? The next step is, you can see I downloaded it on my on my laptop. You can say on your workstation or your company laptop, right? But you have to copy this software, onto your the virtual machine where you want to install the package. So in our case, the virtual machine where I have to install is the Azure virtual machine. So for that, I need to log in into that portal.azure.com, and then I need to connect to that virtual machine, and then I need to RDP into that, right? I have to open that Commserve virtual machine and then connect through RDP, right? So what I'm trying to do here is, so consider that ABC bank example, the backup admin downloaded the packages on the local computer, but he need to copy that onto the virtual machine, right, where he has to install that Commserve package. Okay, so that is showing as stopped, right? So we need to start it. The virtual machine should be running to access that RDP. So there in the notification, you can see everything, right? Whenever you click anything, the notification will show you the success or failure status here. in this case I started that virtual machine. So so I need to wait for a few seconds to start that. Okay, so now execution started command. Okay, select. Okay, the green symbol indicates that the virtual machine is started. Now you can see that it is in running status. Okay, now I'm connecting to that Commserve machine. I downloaded the RDP file. Okay, so here you can see that. So within this virtual machine, I have already copied it, right? So I already copied from my, no, from my laptop or from my company laptop. I copied that file onto the Commserve virtual machine. I kept it on the desktop. You can see that. Okay, it's already there. So do you want to replay the settings? So I say cancel. So now, so I have the software for installing the Commserve on my virtual machine, right? Azure virtual machine. So this is a machine where I have to install the Commserve package. So I need to extract it. It's a zip file, right? So first I have to extract that. After extraction, you'll see the folder like that on the left hand side. So within that folder, yeah. So you have to do the right click, extract all. So when you do the right click, extract all, so it will be extracted, and then you will see all these files. Setup file here. What is important is setup file. I mean, you would have done like software installation, like for example, if you have done the antivirus software or any software installation, it will have a setup. So when you are installing any software in Windows, you'll be having a setup file. In the same way, if you are installing the Commserve, Commvault package, there will be an setup file. So we have to run the setup file to install the Commserve package. So yeah, coming back to that ABC bank example. So backup admin has successfully downloaded the Commvault package. He copied that onto the Azure virtual machine. So the next day, his task is that he need to install the Commserve server, right? He need to install that package and then configure Commserve. So I'll give a pass here. So it is only 50. So it's 15 minutes video. So that will demonstrate how you can install the Commserve package and also how you can configure that. So I'll give a pass here, and if you have any questions, I'm going to take for might be we can do one thing. We can keep this installation part on Monday because it is 15 minutes long. Now already like it's 9 o'clock now. So sometimes just you should be prepared, like sometimes I may drag the session to 1.5 hour like that because it's the first day, so I don't want it to extend it. So 1 hour should be fine. So the next part will be installing the Commserve, and then we'll see we'll learn the tool step by step. So as I said, like it will be real time oriented. So we'll take an example of an ABC bank, small environment, and then we'll in every day we'll learn a new task. Like the first task will be after we install and configure Commserve, the next task will be the media agent, and we have to install and configure media agent. So while installing and configuring media agent, I will also tell you what is the need of media agent, what exactly it do. In the next class, we'll see how you can configure one Windows client, and then how you can configure one file system backup. After that, how you can do the file system restore. And in the next session, we'll see how you can configure an Linux client and Linux backup. How you can do that backup of a Linux client and restore. So this is how the session will progress. So I will give a halt here, and so if you have any questions, you can ask now. Let me stop the recording.